Please welcome your host, author and deputy national editor of the Globe and Mail, Rachel Giza.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, authors and book lovers and readers. Thank you for coming out on this very rainy night to be here to support Canadian writers and writing. To our nominated authors who are here tonight, I want you all to take a deep breath and relax and settle in and enjoy this night as we celebrate you and your work. First, I'll ask all of you to join us in acknowledging the land on which we gather. Toronto is part of the Dish with One Spoon territory, named for a treaty between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee. This treaty bound them to share the territory and protect the land of the Dish, which is what is now known as Southern Ontario. Since its creation, subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been incorporated into the treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. We extend our gratitude to the past, present, and future elders and teachers who carry the knowledge of this land. We are truly grateful for the opportunity to create, live, learn, read, and write on this land together. Thank you. And to support this land acknowledgement and endeavor to work toward reconciliation, Writers Trust has made a donation to the Indigenous Voices Awards. Please, yes, that's great. Please applaud. I am so honored to be your host tonight. My name is Rachel Giza. I'm an editor and a journalist and an author. In 2019, I won a Writers Trust Award, not in this room, but in Ottawa at an event called Politics and the Pen, where I won the Shaughnessy Cohen Prize for Political Writing for my book, Boys, What It Means to Become a Man. The award was life-changing for me, and I was particularly gratified that the Writers Trust recognized that politics don't only exist in legislatures and courts, but in our families and homes and schools and communities as well. Most significantly, being a recipient of this award connected me to the extended Writers Trust community of authors, and I so deeply respect the work the Writers Trust does in supporting and celebrating writers throughout the span of their careers. Now, I'm aware, as we gather tonight, that we have recently emerged from one nightmare to find ourselves and our world plunged into another. And I want to acknowledge the role that writers can play in dark and terrifying times like these, when there is so much suffering, fear, anger, and grief. I recently came across an essay by Toni Morrison from 2004, which was another time of darkness in our world, in which she was struggling to find something to say. Then a friend reminded her of the necessity of writing. This is precisely the time when artists go to work, Morrison writes. There is no time for despair, no time for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal. During the loneliest days of COVID lockdowns, writers provided company and comfort. In times of violence and conflict, we turn to writers for courage and clarity, and most especially for imagination and hope. Our world, our cultures, are shaped in part by the stories we tell. And we are doomed if we insist on simple stories or easy stories, if we never challenge inherited or assumed truths about what the world is and how it must be. Throughout the worst horrors of human history, writers have illuminated injustice with rigor and courage and used their boldest, wildest imaginations to envision new and just ways of being. Nothing of human creation is inevitable, and the status quo is not unchangeable. There's another story that we can tell, we must tell, one in which there is safety, freedom, dignity, and lasting peace for all of us. To tonight's winning authors, you have the podium, and your voices are welcome and valued. Now, let's turn our attention to tonight's honored authors and guests. Writers' Trust gives 12 literary awards annually, 7 of them here at the Writers' Trust Awards. Everyone in this room and tuning in from home, and a big shout out to those live stream viewers, will have the opportunity to cheer as 7 winners are named and $322,000 is delivered into the hands of writers. I know. So, if you're ready to begin, we start tonight with a prize that is unique on the landscape of Canadian literary prizes and inclusive, intersectional, and groundbreaking since its inception. To present tonight's first prize, the Dayne Ogilvie Award for LGBTQ2S+ emerging writers, please welcome prize founder and principal donor, Robin Pacific.
Thank you, Rachel, for those thoughtful and inspiring words. It means a lot. In 2007, this prize was established to honor my late friend, Dayne Ogilvie. Dayne was a respected editor, writer, journalist, and a passionate lover of all the arts, especially writing. Over its history, the Dayne Ogilvie Prize has rewarded over 40 emerging writers who have gone on to publish dozens of books, win awards nationally and internationally, and who represent the creativity, community, and talent of Canada's LGBTQ2S+ writers. All right. I met Dayne around 1980, 81, I don't remember exactly, just at the beginning of the AIDS crisis. His is a story of survival. He lost many, many friends and lovers to AIDS, and most tragically, his beloved youngest brother, Danny Ogilvie. Danny Ogilvie was a really fine photographer and would have had a great career. And I just want to acknowledge that an entire generation of artists and cultural workers were wiped out in that war. Dayne died in 2006 of a heart attack, but I've always known his was a broken heart. However, Dayne believed that being he would be so happy to know about all the writers who have won this prize in his name. This year's jury was composed of the writers S. Bear Bergman, Nicholas Dawson, and Sharon Paul Rupri. Together, they chose 3 debut books published between June 2022 and September 2023 by LGBTQ2S+ authors. I thank them for their service on the jury and the incredibly difficult task they faced in selecting this year's finalists and winners. The juries used such words as explosive, unflinching, and electric to describe this year's finalists. After this, I suggest you purchase their books to find out which is which. And since I've read them all, I can tell you that all 3 apply to all 3 books. I am pleased to present to you the short list for the 2023 Dayne Ogilvie Prize. Scenes from the Underground by Gabrielle Colette, translated by E.S. Tyone, published by House of Anansi Press. Body So Fluorescent by Amanda Cordner and David DiGiovanni. As published by Playwrights Canada Press. And third, Chrysalis by Anuja Varghese, published by House of Anansi Press. And the winner I think I was supposed to say something about that. They write my script for me, except for the part about Dayne. The winner of the 2023 Dayne Ogilvie Prize for LGBTQ2S+ emerging writers, including a prize of $10,000, is... It's like being at the Oscars, eh? I love it. I can get this open. Chrysalis by Anuja Varghese.
Hi. Oh my goodness. Okay, I wrote some things on a Post-it note in case I won, so I'm going to do some thank yous. I would like to thank the jury for the Dayne Ogilvie Prize. This is incredibly meaningful to me. I would like to thank Robin Pacific for starting this prize. I would like to thank the Writers' Trust for everything you do to support Canadian writing, and especially queer writing through this very important prize. I would like to shout out House of Anansi. They are an amazing team. Thank you for everything you've done to support my book, and so many other very good books. I would like to shout out the other nominees in this category, Amanda, David, Gabrielle, Alex. Yes, please, give them a round of applause. Your work is stunning and daring and pushes the boundaries of CanLit in all the best ways. I am inspired by you and honored to be in your company. I wanted to say that I have been very fortunate to receive mentorship from not one, but two previous Dayne Ogilvie winners in Farzana Doctor and Amber Dawn. Both just generous, brilliant, badass writers, and I'm so grateful to them for their support and for leading by example in so many ways. I think it speaks to the power of queer mentorship. My hope, my goal will be to use this prize to open some doors for other queer writers as doors have been opened for me. I want to thank my mom, who is not here tonight, and who doesn't always understand or approve of my writing or my life, but loves me and supports me anyway. And that's so hard to do. So thanks, Mom. That English degree is not looking like such a bad idea anymore, is it? I want to thank my partner, who is here. So I don't get to do any of this without you, you know that. I'm honestly fairly useless. Like, I can't cook, I can't drive, I can't put together IKEA furniture. All I can do is write, and all I want to do most of the time is write, which is so impractical. So thank you, I love you, and you look very beautiful tonight if I didn't tell you. Two other things I want to say very quickly. They gave me 4 minutes, so I'm going to take them. If you are a queer writer in the room or watching and you are worried there's no space for your stories, or maybe your family doesn't support you, or your community doesn't feel safe for you, find your people. Find them in person or online. I promise you there is an audience for your work. I think this recognition is proof of that, and don't give up, because we need your voice. One more thing I wanted to say, we're in a weird time. Diverse books are being censored, queer books are being shadow banned, we have artists and authors and activists sort of being silenced for speaking up against genocide and misinformation. So my heart right now is with the people of Palestine in their fight for peace and for freedom, which are not the same thing. I urge everyone here to do whatever you can to call for a ceasefire. I leave you with a reminder that I need to. I know it's easy to feel powerless in these times, but I really believe there is power in storytelling as a means of resistance. There is power in all of our pens. Let us not be made afraid to use them. Thank you.
Now, the next set of awards are given not for a single book, but to recognize the arc of a writer's career and their outstanding contribution over years and decades. There are no shortlists for these awards. A jury of peers work together, they survey the landscape and select candidates. Then they read books spanning the career of those candidates. The winners of the Writers' Trust Career Awards are in the uniquely comfortable position tonight of knowing that they've already won. They can rest easy. These awards deliver an important message. We see you, we believe in you, and most importantly, keep writing. To present tonight's second prize, the Matt Cohen Award in celebration of a writing life, please welcome book lover and the prize's generous sponsor, Lorraine Gray.
Good evening. For more than 2 decades, the Matt Cohen Award has been presented to a Canadian writer who's lived the writing life. That is, made their living completely by writing, and that has never been easy. The award is given for literary excellence and arrives with $25,000 to allow the winner to continue to do what they have done so well for so long. The award is presented in memory of author Matt Cohen. A passionate proponent of Canadian literature, Matt published more than 30 books. He was a founding member of the Writers' Union of Canada, a leading advocate in creating this country's public lending right program, and an internationally celebrated writer in his own right who helped to put Canada on the global literary map. Upon his death in 1999, Writers' Trust began to present an annual award in Matt's name to a writer who has made a significant and lasting contribution to Canadian literature. Personally, I am honored to support this award and the writers it recognizes. This year's selection committee was comprised of Michelle Good, Wayne Grady, and Hal Wake. I would like to offer my thanks to Michelle, Wayne, and Hal for their work to ensure that deserving authors receive this vital support and encouragement. And to longtime committee member Patsy Aldana for her dedication to supporting the writing life in Matt's memory. Thank you. Now it is my pleasure to recognize the winner of this year's award, a writer whose works have personally touched me and inspired me through the years, and whom I've now had the delightful pleasure of meeting and honoring. This writer has said that writing a novel is like trying to break out of a prison you've created by your idea. She is, in that sense, an accomplished escape artist, having written 12 novels, 5 books of poetry, and 5 books of nonfiction. This most gifted writer explores the fertile territory in the overlap between fiction and nonfiction, between nature and the human experience. Her quiet brilliance, said the jury, has made her one of Canada's most beloved writers. With each book, she leads her readers into ever new and exciting territory. Born in Kingston upon Thames, England, and now based in Kingston, Ontario, I am honored to welcome to the stage the winner of the 2023 Matt Cohen Award, Helen Humphreys.
Thank you. I'm so nervous. I can't even though I knew ahead of time, it's a very nerve-wracking process. I did write a little something down because writers are always best when they're writing rather than speaking off the cuff, in my experience anyway. I am deeply grateful to the Writers' Trust for this wonderful honor. It means so much to me that this is an award granted by my peers. And I have to say that I am also very appreciative of the financial part of this award, because in my writing life, there has been one day where I drank champagne at a castle and many, many other days when I rolled my loose change to pay the bills. The money that comes with tonight's award will go a long way to helping make life easier this year, so thank you, Lorraine. A writer's life is twofold. The first part is done alone and consists at heart of following a flickering flame into the darkness. To do this, a writer has to remain open, has to trust that the flame won't die, and that it will give out enough light to carve a path through the darkness. At the beginning of a writing life, it seems there are other things at play: personal ambition, the political and social climate. But these elements change over time and can't be relied upon. What does remain constant is the flickering flame of an idea or a feeling, and the trust the writer must place in their own journey to develop that idea or emotion. In my experience, to be engaged in this process is never an easy undertaking, but it is ultimately the only thing that matters. If a writer publishes, the second part of the writing life is collaborative and consists of sustaining relationships with publishers, editors, agents, booksellers, and readers. Without the object of the book, which is at the center of these relationships, the words of the writer won't reach anyone. There is so much consideration and care that goes into the making and support of a book after it has been written, that it really is a group effort. I have been extremely fortunate in my industry relationships throughout my long career. What started as working partnerships have, in many cases, become real and lasting friendships, and many of the people I knew initially as editor or agent or bookseller are among my most beloved people on earth. For almost 30 years, I have been published by HarperCollins Canada. They have been wholly supportive of me and never tried to talk me out of writing a book about apples or a novel about a woman who ties salmon flies in the north of Scotland in a hut. I would like to thank everybody at HarperCollins, in particular my editor, Jennifer Lambert, Iris Tupholme, and my former editors, Jane Warren and Phyllis Bruce. Phyllis and I worked together for nearly 20 years. I would also like to thank my agent, the brilliant Claire Alexander, as well as my American editor, Jenna Johnson at FSG, and my Italian editor, Andrea Bergamini at Playground. I have worked with Susan Renouf on 3 of my books in her capacity as editor at McClellan Stewart and then ECW Press. I would like to thank her and both of those publishers. I would also like to thank Brick Books, who published my poetry books. My writing life has been a long one, and some of the people it included are no longer with us. I would like to remember Frances Hanna and Stan Dragland. I think of them both so often. And last, but certainly not least, I would like to thank my partner, Nancy, my local bookstore, Novel Idea in Kingston, and my students in Creative Writing 281 for having the courage to follow their own flickering flames into the darkness. Thank you.
The next award recognizes the career of writers who focus on a very discerning readership. Authors of books for children instill a love of stories from a young age and create devoted, lifelong readers. To present the Vicky Metcalf Award for Literature for Young People, please welcome children's book author, reviewer, and juror for this year's prize, Deirdre Baker.
I'm going to take you back to ancient history. 1963. The Beatles released their first album. Audio cassettes are introduced. I Have a Dream. Here in Canada, the Vicky Metcalf Award was first awarded. For 60 years since, it has recognized authors who challenge themselves, children, teens, adults, and society through a unique lens, writing for young people. This is indeed a discerning audience, one that is quick, clever, engaged, questioning, and quick to judge. On behalf of the Writers' Trust, I'm grateful to the Metcalf Foundation for making this $25,000 prize possible. In addition to the prize, the Metcalf Foundation also supports the Books to Indigenous Schools project, through which Writers Trust sends books by Vicky Metcalf winners and Indigenous authors to 250 schools across Canada. These schools with majority Indigenous student populations are largely remote and with underfunded libraries. Through the Metcalf Foundation's sponsorship, books have reached all 13 provinces and territories, from Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Newfoundland and Labrador, to Bella Bella, British Columbia, to Resolute, Nunavut. The project enters its 5th year this year, and we thank the Metcalf Foundation for its support in putting books into children's hands. I was lucky to serve on this year's jury for the Vicky Metcalf Award this year, alongside Andrea Curtis and Ita Sadhu. It was a great pleasure to discuss children's books with them, and most particularly because we were in complete agreement. Always a pleasure. And now the recipient of this year's award. The author of 19 picture books, this year's winner dives into subjects as clearly defined as the life of an artist and into subjects as amorphous as a fog, a whole city, or a spell of depression. Her prose is clean, clear, and restrained, and at the same time, subtly poetic, mingling unpredictable imagery, dialogue, and situations with evocative and sometimes even startling effect. What makes her stories most extraordinary is that they are elusive, they're suggestive. They are a mode of approaching what is vital but puzzling. Instead of giving directions or answers, she invites interpretation and pondering, awakening curiosity, imagination, and understanding through her unusual imagery. Using wordplay, she can surprise her readers with what seems a direct, simple narrative, but instead provides humor, rich insight, and deeper questioning. The winner of this year's 2023 Vicky Metcalf Award for Literature for Young People, and it's $25,000, is Keo Maclear.
I'm going to try to get through this without crying. I'm a super feeler, so it's hard sometimes. Thank you for those beautiful words, Deirdre. I have to say, children are a discerning audience, and I'm deeply honored to be here. But I must admit, I've also felt like hiding in a forest with frog and toad, or deep in a valley with the Moomins, because along with the unexpected news of this wonderful award, was an invitation to share words that might be eloquent and inspiring. And I know I'm not alone in saying these past weeks I've experienced a feeling of great ineloquence and dissonance. We recipients of the Vicky Metcalf Write for Children, and it's difficult not to be thinking of children who must feel themselves frightfully abandoned right now. No child should experience the horror of war, and we cannot erase what has been done or the pain these children will carry into the future, but we can lend our voices to the compassionate solidarity building around the world, in the streets, calling for ceasefire. So no child feels the added horror of an indifferent world, so they grow up with a sense of value, of their value, knowing they were not alone. Tonight, I'm grateful to the Writers Trust and the Metcalf Foundation, to the award jury, to my beautiful peers who share a deep love for children and children's literature. I work in the most extraordinary community and would not have books without my incredible illustrator collaborators, including my dear friends, Isabel Arsenault and Julie Morstad. Without Jackie Kaiser, who has been my steadfast supporter for 20 years. Without the great team at Westwood Creative Artists, or my publishers in Canada, Kids Can, well, Knopf is also my publisher, Kids Can, Tundra, and Groundwood Books. Without librarians and independent booksellers who are incomparable champions of writers and their books, as we all know. I've worked with brilliant editors. One of my first editors isn't here tonight, but the legendary and beloved Tara Walker, who first opened the door to me, Sheila Berry, Emma Sakamoto, Annie Kelly, just to name a few. And these are editors who do not underestimate the capacity of children, editors who have stood against censorious, conservative pressures, who've defended books, including my books, against book bans. So, speaking of discerning audiences, I am grateful for my young readers who've embraced my weird stories with their willful, absurdist, and sometimes woeful characters. The readers who tell me very sincerely, thank you for speaking to us like real people. But also sometimes, I like your books, but honestly and actually, I prefer Mo Willems. I stand here in large part because of my partner, David, the funniest and kindest person I know, and truly because of our children, who are also in the room tonight. Yoshi, Mika, and Rabia, you are my superheroes. For many years, I only wrote sensible grown-up books. Then my sons, who are now very tall, took me through a portal, and they reminded me that the world is often absurd and insensible, and I realized that the most special and truthful things that I would ever write were books for the young. So let me end with a little tribute to one of my favorite books from childhood, Where the Wild Things Are. And I'm going to dedicate this to 4 new friends, Anuja, Emily, Brooke, and Kai, who I sat with last night. The night the writers gathered to celebrate literature of one kind and another, and the writers said, we must be respectful and orderly and leave childish things behind. A spirit named Maurice stepped in and said, but we need the woods. We need sometimes to howl and disobey and keep our imaginations untrimmed and untamed. We need to remember there are no small people, no small feelings, and no small creatures. We need books that risk being strange, improper books without a word at all, books with holes right through, books written in the voice of the wind. We need books that remember our relations, plant, human, animal, books that upend the artificial categories, the ones that are breaking our world. We need the shine and shadows of our woodsy stories, where we are free to be wolfish and proclaim our radical moods and have a wild rumpus, particularly when the world is still full of wars, injustices, and rules that make us heartsick. We need bold and beautiful books, particularly when adults speak in a language that often seems flat and empty and without truth. We need to remember that beauty can grow in the most inhospitable and censorious spaces, and so can curiosity, compassion, and courageous conversation. The quandaries of childhood are the quandaries of the whole of life, those of belonging and betrayal, the power of the group, and the courage it takes to question, to be brave, to be curious. The woods are the heart of everything. That very night in Glenn Gould's studio, a forest grew and grew until the ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around, and the writers celebrated the beauty of disobedience and inquisitiveness, the beauty of language and stories that keep our souls alive, that imagine all children everywhere, as today's readers, but also tomorrow's writers. Finally, let me end with one last dedication. I inherited this writing life from a father who nourished my reading soul. He had an unlucky childhood and left his foster home and school at the age of 14, but he did have a book, Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, this copy here, from 1934. It has penciled notes in it, made long ago, and end paper drawings that are as distinct as his handwriting. My father bestowed upon me a love of words and encouraged me from a young age to ask compelling questions about the world around us. He always believed in me, and I dedicate this award to him. Thank you so very much.
Here's to the Wild Rumpus. To speak on behalf of the Writers' Trust Board of Directors and to present the Writers' Trust Engel Findlay Award, please welcome Amreen Omar.
Thank you all again for being here this evening in support of Canadian writers and writing. Writers' Trust delivers vital support to Canadian authors at every stage of their careers, including through mentorships, a writer's retreat, and the Woodcock Fund, which has just hit a new milestone. $1.9 million has been delivered to writers facing an emergency since the fund was established in 1989. The career awards given by Writers' Trust are unique in their mission to celebrate voices that represent the depth and diversity of Canadian talent. Book after book after book. These are rewards for literary excellence, but also for stamina, spirit, and artistic growth in a rewarding but exacting profession. The Writers' Trust Engel Findlay Award recognizes a writer of fiction in mid-career. While this award comes with a prize of $25,000, it is equally important in its endorsement of this author's craft and courage. As the beneficiaries of the Timothy Findlay Estate, Writers' Trust is especially pleased to be able to reward an author who, like both Tiff Findlay and Marion Engel, dedicated their careers to the very hard, very essential business of telling our stories. May receiving this acclaim and knowing it is named for two such important authors from our past be a source of encouragement to tonight's winner. Before I reveal the winner, I would like to express gratitude to the jurors, authors Connor Kerr, Michael Redhill, and Shauna Singh Baldwin. Together, they read some of the best contemporary Canadian writers of fiction. On behalf of Writers' Trust, I thank them for the thoroughness and thoughtfulness they brought to their reading and decision. Here's what the jury said about this year's winner. In 4 remarkable novels, 2 plays, and a collection of stories, this writer's bold and courageous choice of subjects challenges us to witness and confront uncomfortable truths. He chooses to inhabit characters for whom hope is an unaffordable luxury. As he skillfully reveals and illuminates the circumstances of the choiceless and voiceless, he keeps our gaze on the depredations of power. His compassion, imagination, and keen eye for the absurd shine through. His immense talent is complemented by his dedication to the craft. His work has left an indelible mark on the literary landscape, and we hope he will continue to touch our hearts and broaden our understanding of the human experience. My fellow book lovers, please join us in celebrating the winner of the 2023 Engel Findlay Award, Anuja Rani.
Good evening, everyone. What an incredible honor to receive the Engel Findlay Award. I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to the Writers' Trust and to the jury, Connor Kerr, Michael Reddell, and Shauna Singh Baldwin. I feel blessed and I'm truly grateful. The fact that I can stand here, that we can gather here and celebrate literature during these times is a small miracle. So I'd like to think of tonight's address as a way of expressing gratitude. I moved to Canada from Bombay in 1998. I came here as a student with the aim of becoming a writer. I did not know then, at least not fully, how absurd my quest was. What was I thinking? Clearly, I wasn't. I jumped onto a plane and landed in Vancouver. After the initial months passed, I experienced a huge sense of loss. Family, friends, community, they were all slipping away, and I was struggling. At times, I found it hard to breathe. I came from a city of 20 million to a land with seemingly infinite space, and I was claustrophobic. But then something happened. Complete strangers came to my rescue. They were strangers, but I knew their names. Zora Neale Hurston, Albert Camus, Junichiro Tanizaki, Rohinton Mistry, Mordecai Richler, Tennessee Williams, Anna Akhmatova, Amos Tutola. And the more I asked for help, the more help I received. I still longed for home, but instead of me going to Bombay, Bombay came to me. I was haunted by images of the red light district, which was directly opposite the place where I grew up. I was haunted by its inhabitants, its sounds and movements, and by stillness, the unearthly quiet that comes from souls who are trapped in brothels and have no recourse. It made my claustrophobia feel immature, selfish even. I viewed my isolation as an offering, albeit a painful one. It was the very thing that would take me deeper into myself. And then another small miracle. I wrote one good sentence. And a few weeks later, another one. The weight on my chest got a bit lighter. I said that tonight is an opportunity for me to practice gratitude, but alongside gratitude, there can also be disturbance. The two can go hand in hand. I've always believed that it is the function of literature to provide not comfort, but discomfort. The job of literature is to disturb, to challenge our notions of what it means to be alive, to shatter us, to break us open. We as writers invite people to not look away. We provide the lens and the focus to do that. At this moment in time, what and who we place at the center of our vision will determine our future. We need to listen to points of view that might be different from our own, or simply points of view completely unknown to us. But to do that, both writer and reader must be willing to enter places as yet unimagined, often places of disturbance. I would like to quote the Indian poet Vijay Nambisan. In one of his poems, he writes, "I like to touch darkness, sometimes, with steady fingers." As writers, we sometimes force ourselves to look in the direction of the anguish. And we don't just look, we pay close attention. We listen deeply. We refuse to move on, because moving on is different from evolving. We writers get stuck. We are belligerent in our stubbornness. For me, writing is not a healing art. It is not meant to soothe. It is not a balm. But when the world is falling apart like it is right now, isn't healing what we need? In which case, what is the role of the writer? Should we continue to disrupt and disturb? We could argue that we also create empathy. But can you really evoke empathy without disruption? Should you? And the fact that we evoke empathy in a reader seems to be of little value unless it translates into real life. What's going on right now, you can call it conflict, call it war, call it anything you want. I'd like to call it a failure of the human race. We have simply forgotten that we are not separate from one another. The pandemic took our sense of taste away for a while, and now that it has come back, we taste our own pain, but are unable to taste someone else's. A novel is a body of every experience, including pain. Plays, poems, short stories, all are bodies of pleasure and pain moving through time. Stories that have existed from the beginning of time to remind us that we are all connected. Being recognized for my body of work would not have been possible without many people. First, I'd like to acknowledge the indigenous people to whom this land belongs, a land that I'm still learning about. I'd also like to thank editors, publishers, agents, teachers, colleagues, dramaturgs, playwrights, translators, librarians, artistic directors, actors, students, family, friends, and writers from the past and present. To you all, I am eternally grateful for continuing to inspire me and giving me strength and courage so I can touch the darkness with steady fingers, steady hands, but hopefully never become part of it. Thank you.
I never want to come out too quickly because I want the writers to all get their due. I want them all to get the full amount of applause. For all the writers. The next prize is the last of the career awards to be given this evening, recognizing an outstanding poet in mid-career for the 10th year, thanks to the ongoing support of the Latner Family Foundation. This year, the winner's prize purse has more than doubled to $60,000 thanks to a generous new co-sponsorship. To present the Latner Griffin Writers Trust Poetry Prize, please welcome prize co-sponsor Scott Griffin.
When you are old and gray and full of sleep, and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read and dream of the soft look your eyes had once and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with a love false or true, but one man loved the pilgrim soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. Poetry is as old as language. And in fact, poetry is the essence of language. It covers the full range of human emotions and experience. And Canada is fortunate with its multiculturalism. We have a rich number of poets writing wonderful poetry. I personally am honored to have been invited to participate with Stephen Latner and his family in presenting the Writers Trust Griffin, or Latner Griffin Poetry Prize. And as you have been told, we've increased it up to $60,000, and that is to underline the importance of poetry, perhaps even more important than novels or fiction and nonfiction. So the prize, the judges this year are Mutor Anand, Joseph Dandurand, and Dina Del Bukia. And they have done a fantastic job in choosing the poet this evening who's going to win this prize. They have given a description of this poet, or of this poetry, and with your permission, I'll read what they say. With incisive descriptions, steady rhythms, and imaginative leaps, this poet's work shows us the flaws and fragility of being human. Hopefully there's some other qualities as well. Her expansive, so we know something there, her expansive body of work addresses personal, global issues in language, sometimes woven delicately and other times with necessary force. Ultimately, we are left with the desire to read more from this striking and intelligent poetic voice. I certainly agree with that. This poet takes on the themes of immigration, patriarchy, colonial greed, and war. Her oeuvre to date uses the power of poetry to be clear-eyed, insistent on the injustices and atrocities of our past, which are evidently still with us in the present moment. The winner of the Writers' Trust Latner Griffin Poetry Prize is Laisha Rosnau. She is not only a good poet, she's a lovely person, and her daughter's here to support her this evening.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. So, a lifetime of correcting the pronunciation of my name. It's Laisha. Thank you, Scott. And I have two people very near and dear to me in the audience today who know I am a big crier. So I don't think I'm going to make this through this without crying. Thank you for this incredible and incredibly surprising honor. I was quite honestly, incredulous when Devin Jackson from the Writers' Trust contacted me to let me know I'd received this honor. I kept insisting, yeah, but you're joking, right? He kept assuring me he was not, and that would be a very cruel joke indeed. He told me who the jury was, and I was even more honored. But I thought, with that jury, this might be a joke. Thank you to the amazing jury, whose work I so admire, and it's such an honor to receive this from a jury of my peers. As writers, and perhaps especially poets, we may be near to the world being in on a joke we don't quite get, not quite fitting into the world and the ways to make our way through it. But is anyone really? Everything belongs are the wise words of a fellow BC poet, Sharon Thiessen. I think of these words as I accept this award. A huge debt of gratitude to the Latner Family Foundation and Scott Griffin, who have decided that poets and Canadian poetry belong in the realm of things worthy to fund. I cannot express how unlikely and important this is. Immeasurable thanks to the independent BC publisher, Nightwood Editions, who have published all 4 of my collections and with whom I've had a nearly 20-year author-publisher relationship that now feels old-fashioned in its loyalty and commitment. It feels like Nightwood publisher Silas White and I came up through Canadian publishing together, and it's been a joy to do so alongside him and the Nightwood crew. There is no way to thank all the writing peers, friends, and co-conspirators along the way. To those of us who have spent hours upon hours of our lives reading and commenting on each other's work as though it really mattered. Maybe it did, maybe it does. Thank you. We can't know what words, thoughts, and feedback will matter to others, what difference the words on the page will make to someone someday.
To my family, with whom I very much feel as though I belong. Thank you to my parents, Lauren and Lorna Rosnau, who have supported me through every dubious and ill-advised choice along the way, and those wiser choices that have led me here. To my husband, Aaron Deans, my son, Jonah, my daughter, Amalia, who are my posse and my people. Everything belongs, and I belong to two lines of families, both who immigrated to Canada from Ukraine. My father's side were German landowners who were invited to farm in what is now Ukraine by Catherine the Great, of German-born Russian nobility. My mother's side were the Ukrainian peasants who lived under different combinations of Russian, German, and Polish rule. My baba, Nastya Bardak, then known as Nancy or Nellie Proch, immigrated to Canada in 1921 at age 17. She was a peasant farm girl who worked for Polish landowners near Lviv. She met my Jito in the farmland of Alberta, Inuk Cree Territory, Treaty 6, and his family was from a neighboring village back home. She was married by 18, had her first child at 20, and her first family home had a packed dirt floor and a sod roof. Her last child, my mom, was born when Baba was in her late 30s, and by then they had a house with a cellar, a foundation, 2 stories, and a shingled roof. No running water or electricity, but who needed that with family, community, and the freedom to practice one's religion, culture, songs, dance, and traditions. Both my paternal and maternal grandparents worked hard, as so many of our predecessors did, so that generations to come could have a good life. My mom was named Laisha after the Ukrainian poet Laisha Ukrainka and passed that name on to me. Imagine their disappointment and dismay when I dropped out of high school and headed straight for downtown Vancouver. I spent a couple of what I call my lost years there, as they were lost in more ways than one. My parents, grand and great parents, had worked hard and instilled in me all the right values. Where had they gone wrong? Everything belongs, and after a couple of years of not really finding a place to belong in that world, having friends and acquaintances become even more lost than myself, I returned home to traditional unceded Syilx territory in what is now known as Vernon, and attended Okanagan College in the interior of BC as a so-called mature student. It was truly English, literature, and creative writing classes that inspired and motivated me, kept me going, and helped me feel like I belonged, that all my varied experiences up until that point belonged in some way. I completed an honors degree in English literature, a master's degree in creative writing, and I love telling university students I teach that I'm a high school dropout. For our niece, Raiden, this is where I'm going to cry. Books played just as important role in her life. Raiden's lost years were longer and more challenging than my own. The forest closing in around her darker and way less easy to find her way. She struggled with significant mental health and addiction issues. It was through books and literature that she found her escape, her solace, her inspiration, and a feeling of belonging, found ways that she could navigate her way through that dark terrain. We lost Raiden 34 days ago today to toxic drugs. She was our first niece, our children's oldest cousin, the oldest grandchild on one side of our family, a sweet, kind, gentle, vulnerable soul. It means so much to me to dedicate this award to her and honor her tonight. Raiden Elika Deans, you are so loved and so missed. I know that my story and my family's story is not unique. We are the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of those who came to Canada escaping persecution, discrimination, servitude, and often unknowingly settled on land that was stolen from Indigenous nations and peoples who were and often still are persecuted and discriminated against. We are the descendants of those who left former homelands that may be locked in a cycle of conflict to this day. We still feel connected to those places, at loss of how and if peace will ever come. We are also those who don't know quite how we fit in here or anywhere with our chosen field, art form, identity, or way of being in the world. Many of us struggle at times or have family members who fight just to get by day to day. Too many of us have lost loved ones to these struggles. Literature can't save us. Poetry can't save our lives. But literature, poetry, and all writing that questions, challenges, pushes against, opens up, and shines light can provide recognition, validation, solace, inspiration, and ways to realize that everything belongs in one way or another. So, circling back, as they say, an enormous thank you to the Latner Family Foundation and Scott Griffin for their belief in the value and importance of poetry in contemporary life, to the Writers' Trust of Canada for placing recognition on writers, books, and the value of literature in contemporary Canada. And now I'm going to shout out to my daughter Amalia, who loves art, design, and literature, and to whom I'm a dorky, embarrassing, middle-aged mom. I truly am, but now I'm also an award-winning, dorky, middle-aged mom. Reminding you and all of us to put down our phones and pick up a book. Our phones may have digital maps that I can't quite follow, but our books provide us ways to navigate human conflict and strife, find our way through the human condition, and give us messy, complicated, beautiful naps to the human heart. Everything belongs. Thank you.
Your award. I couldn't let you sit down without your award. It's great to get to be giving away so much money to writers tonight. It's a lot of fun. Over the course of the evening, we're highlighting the individual foundation and corporate benefactors that make tonight's prizes possible. And I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge a few additional sponsors and partners that help support the Writers' Trust Awards. They are the Department of Canadian Heritage, the Globe and Mail, the Centre for Equitable Library Access, Indigo Books and Music, Prime Motion Graphics, and Steam Whistle Brewing. A thank you to them for the role they play in making tonight a true celebration of Canadian literary excellence. Now, before we present our next award, which is the Hilary Weston Writers' Trust Prize, we'd like to give you a glimpse into the worlds of the nominated books. These videos were created by Ian Aftemus Rosa of Prime Motion Graphics, and they're voiced by the authors themselves. Enjoy.
I'm discarding everything I have done in my life, just throwing it away, and soon I'll be a man without a history. I'm being ejected from it. My past no longer belongs to me. The war has eaten it up. I'm an old tree being uprooted from its soil. But damn it all to hell. I can't be of less value than one of Dayne's cats. I have to get away from this season of death.
On my first day at the memorial, I saw a Black couple and their almost 2-year-old baby girl. I greeted them, and then I watched them as I and they made a way through the space. The little girl sang and laughed. She was so filled with joy that it felt, at first, incongruous. But my encounter with her full of lifeness, her exuberant, so far uncrushed being, was an antidote to the hanging monolith's crushing weight.
Cloaked in red and black button blankets, waving like flags in the streets, Gladys Raddick and other Indigenous matriarchs beat drums in unison as we sing the Woman's Warrior Song. I feel power surge through me. I'm connected to the rock and the rubble of these streets from my time living near them, from reporting on them, and from seeing the lives that have been violently lost on them.
Memory is ephemeral. The fragments that make up our days are easily forgotten. While I remember the sounds of my children playing by the shore, my father's smile, how the haze hung over the lake, other moments from that evening have fallen away and are now irretrievable. Memories can be lost as soon as they are made. Eventually, we will forget everything.
In fire's world, everything relevant is breathing, emitting, vaporizing, volatile. Not just in the air, but the trees, the neighborhood, the house, the Formica countertop, the bag of cat food sitting on it, and, if conditions are favorable enough, hot enough, the cat itself. The higher the temperature, the broader fire's menu. Under the right conditions, even a bulldozer will burn.
Now to present the Hilary Weston Writers' Trust Prize for Nonfiction, please welcome prize juror and last year's winner, Dan Werb.
Good evening, everyone. Those videos were amazing. Wow. Tonight, I have the pleasure of announcing the winner of the Hilary Weston Writers' Trust Prize for Nonfiction, which I had the honor of winning last year for my book, The Invisible Siege. And I swear this speech was mostly written for me, and they put it in there, so who am I to argue? The winner of the prize will receive $75,000, representing Canada's largest literary award for nonfiction, and which is amazing. Before I continue, I just want to take my prerogative here and say that at every awards show, the publishers get thanked, the editors get thanked, the authors get thanked, the publicists never get thanked. And as someone who in a former life was a publicist, and in fact, Anasha Rani won't remember this, but I was actually Anasha Rani's publicist over 20 years ago, I just want to give a shout out to the publicists because none of the authors would have been nominated without the publicists. So thank your publicists. On behalf of the Honorable Hilary Weston, it is really a pleasure to celebrate the work of Canada's finest writers of true stories. Through her sponsorship over 12 years, this prize has helped exemplary works of nonfiction find readers in Canada and beyond. Our 5 finalists this year are storytellers who take us into worlds that are deeply personal, rigorously researched, and distinctly lyrical. Jamal Saeed offers us a story about the strength of humanity through the brutality of a dictatorial regime. Christina Sharpe details ordinary joys and sorrows of Black lives and how they are transformed within the everyday reality of systems of racial supremacy. Angela Sterritt shines a light on the ongoing femicide of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls here in Canada. Emily Urquhart draws us deep into the heart of imagination and possibility through folklore and wonder. And John Valiant crafts a narrative pulsing with beauty and annihilation, hubris and desire, all centered around the most notorious anti-hero of our time, fire. 4 of these finalists are gathered here this evening, and I offer you all my congratulations. Unfortunately, Christina Sharpe couldn't be with us tonight, but she is on a plane to Brazil for the Flip Festival, so we can't feel that bad for her. I'd like to recognize my fellow prize jurors, Eve and Michelle. So we spent 8 months reading 99 books together to select the best 5. And I just want to thank them both because they taught me how to read in new ways. And that is a gift that I really wasn't expecting going into the process, but will be with me for the rest of my life. And they are brilliant people. And you will be hearing more about Michelle in a little bit, not to scoop anything. So thank you to both of them. So once again, the finalists are Jamal Saeed for My Road from Damascus, translated by Catherine Cobham. Christina Sharpe for Ordinary Notes. Angela Sterritt for Unbroken. Emily Urquhart for Ordinary Wonder Tales. And John Valiant for Fireweather. So congratulations again to all the nominated authors. And now, the winner of the 2023 Hilary Weston Writers' Trust Prize for Nonfiction is Ordinary Notes by Christina Sharpe, published by Knopf Canada. So please welcome Canisia Lubrin to accept the award on behalf of Christina Sharpe.
Well, good night. It's a pleasure to be here amongst all of you. Especially to accept this award on behalf of my dear friend, Christina Sharpe, who, it's true, we really cannot feel sorry for her right now. She's going. Christina sent me with a few words that I will share on her behalf. She says, "We write to save our lives. We write to try to bring clarity and imagination, clarity through imagination, to bear on the world and on the matter of our living and our dying. We write even when we doubt that writing matters. But writing does matter. Arrest and imprisonment, surveillance, expulsion and persecution, the bombing of universities, the defunding of libraries, the banning of books, the censorship of history, the threatened eradication by fascism of all that we know, the threats, firings, and cancellations for speech, and because a writer is Palestinian or Black or trans or indigenous, tell us that writing matters, and through it all, writers have written and continue to write. and readers continue to read, and thinkers continue to think. We work against silence, against co-optation, against collusion and despair, and we join others, some writers, many not, who also refuse to be silenced in the face of genocides in Sudan, West Papua New Guinea, Gaza, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. We join others who refuse the pressures to not name a genocide a genocide. We write in the midst of cascading violence, repression, and impossible rage and grief. We write because we know that everything is at stake and that imagination is as necessary as air. Thank you to the Writers' Trust and the Hilary Weston Prize. Thank you to my editor, Lynn Henry from Knopf, Canada, for your question, what are you working on? And your editorial grace and acumen. Thank you to my US editor, Eric Chinsky, and to my agents, Jackie Coe, Charles Buchan, and Christy Murray, to the design teams, and to everyone who has a part in sending our work into the world, to the publicists, Shonda, to Dion Brand, there are not enough thanks, to Kenesia Lubrin, Ronaldo Walcott, Saidia Hartman, Torquase Dyson, Kimberly Brown, and Christopher Sharpe. Thank you for the gifts of your minds, eyes, and hearts. Thank you to my late mother, Ida Wright Sharpe, for the gift of beauty, the gift of books. To all the writers, artists, and musicians who have given me language, and to fellow finalists. Thank you all.
We're about to present this evening's final prize, and we've already thanked the publicists, so I think they're good. I want to thank the jurors. Their job was not easy, and there was an extraordinary selection of books tonight and authors tonight, and so I want to thank the jurors for the care they took in their work. So before we bring you the final award, we once again want to invite you into the worlds of the shortlisted books. Please enjoy this peek into the books nominated for the Atwood Gibson Writers' Trust Fiction Prize.
The year you and I were 14, we invented love. Strange to think that it was the beginning of the breaking of me and the making of you. We were a pair of originals as long as we were a pair. Perhaps the difference is that you embraced your singularity and I cringed at mine. I might have stepped more lightly without that burden. Perhaps I could have made a better go of a more ordinary life.
The day Ruthie went missing, the black fly seemed to be especially hungry. The white folks at the store where we got our supplies said the Indians made such good berry pickers because something sour in her blood kept the black flies away. But even then, as a boy of 6, I knew that wasn't true. Black flies don't discriminate.
Dee heard a rumor spreading through the herd, leaping from cow to bull to calf. The herd would be divided. A truck and trailer would come and load up the chosen. Some of them would be moving on. She had to ask an auntie, what did moving on mean?
I have memories that were not made with my eyes. Sometimes, even now, in the dark, I will feel low bush branches on my feet and legs and hear the calls of night beasts and the echo of the Rappahannock River rushing like a great breath. Sometimes in that dark I would dream indeed as we walked, and awake the next morning in my hammock with no memory of being returned there.
Before we were here, this was their world. They lived their urgent, unstoried lives, each nameless generation passing on without ever knowing the unbroken poem of continuance in their cells. More than once, fire, ice, drought, and death from the sky winnowed their numbers to the edge of silence. But they endured, struggled back from the brink, and flourished again, filling the skies, the waters, the land.
And to present tonight's final prize, the Atwood Gibson Writers' Trust Fiction Prize, please welcome Margaret Atwood.
Thank you for the happy birthday. The squirrels ate my cake. It wasn't good for them. It is my great honor to announce the winner of this year's Atwood Gibson Best Novel Prize. The Gibson part comes from Graham Gibson, my late partner of almost 40 years, and the main enthusiasm behind the founding of the Writers' Trust. I'm supposed to be a co-founder, but I would never have done such a thing on my own. As Graham said to our daughter in the last year of his life, if she hadn't met me, your mother would still have been a writer, but she wouldn't have had as much fun. True, if you consider it fun to be towed like a water skier in the speedboat wake of someone called both a visionary idealist and an impractical lunatic. But Graham was good at talking people into improbable things, and that is why there is a Writers' Trust today. 3 years ago, this prize found a generous new sponsor, visionary idealist, business whiz, and philanthropist Jim Balsillie, who was also good at talking people into improbable things. Graham would have appreciated him very much, and so would my visionary idealist father. Quite a boy, he would have said. That was high praise. The Writers' Trust, and thus fiction writers, are very lucky to have Jim Balsillie on board. Now, the suspense. The 2023 shortlist takes us from a girls' boarding school in 19th century York to the blueberry fields of Maine in the 1960s. We travel inside the mines of the Plains bison and along the shadowy pathways of the Underground Railroad. We're also given a future in which a flock of birds holds the fate of humanity in their claws. Before I open the envelope and reveal the winner of this year's $60,000 prize, let me thank the jury. Much respect. I've done jurying too, and it's darn hard. These three heroic folks read over 123 novels. My brain is hurting. And managed to select 5 finalists without killing one another. They are Francesca Equigliasi, clap, 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 clap. Alex Hawley. And M.G. Vasanji. And they're still standing. Once again, the 5 Atwood Gibson Prize finalists are Learned by Heart by Emma Donahue, The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters, A Grandmother Begins the Story by Michelle Porter, In the Upper Country by Kai Thomas, and The Book of Rain by Thomas Wharton. Congratulations again to all 5 authors. Hey, I'm reading your books. So should we all. The winner of the 2023 Atwood Gibson's Writers' Trust Fiction Prize is, it says on this paper, open envelope and read name aloud. So I might not know how to do that. It is In the Upper Country by Kai Thomas.
Wow, this is beyond surreal. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who made this happen. I didn't consider this before coming here to be a community building event, but like getting to sit with you, Keo, getting to rap with everybody who's here is just, it's so meaningful to be able to connect with you all. So thank you. Thank you, of course, to the Writers' Trust and everybody who made this happen on that end. Thank you to the donors. Thank you to my family. I see you all there. It's so meaningful to... to get to have you all, my parents, and your respective partners all coming together to support me is amazing. Thank you to my wife, Brooke, who's in the back with our 2 babies, Lyris and Kamari. This book was dedicated to Lyris. She's probably asleep right now. I hope one day she enjoys it. Thank you to my whole team who helped me write this book. Editors, Lara is in the house. Thank you. I don't know where you are. Thank you. Laura and Abby, who are not here, this is a real team effort. Sam, my agent, who's in the house. Thank you. I've obviously never done this before, and having guides like you all is fantastic. Sharon, who's not here, my publicist, thank you. Yeah, no, I see the publicist working. That's no joke. I have often struggled with this craft, just as moments like these where it seems like the carnage and the suffering in the world is just coming down in a way that cannot be ignored, should not be ignored. Especially in moments like these, I really question, and I think I'll continue to question the worthiness of spending my time doing this. But this is an incredible affirmation, and just listening to the words that you all have spoken, who have come before me, have on this podium, have inspired me to consider the sanctity of this work. Thank you for that. I don't take it lightly, and I take this moment as an opportunity to make the pledge to continue to believe that storytelling, that writing, that this type of art has to increase our capacity for empathy, increase our capacity for creating peace, harmony, increase our capacity for ceasefire, increase our capacity for all these things. It's easy, feels easy for me to say in this room of relative safety, but I feel compelled to accept this award in that spirit and make that pledge with you all here now in community. So thank you.
Congratulations to all of tonight's winner. Please join me in giving them one more round of applause. And please also join me in congratulating all of tonight's finalists. And that's it. I'd like to invite all the winners and the presenters to the stage for a photograph, please. To our audience, thank you once again for coming out tonight, for tuning into the live stream. For those who are here, there's more food and drink out in the lobby. Please go out, drink, toast the writers. Thank you again for coming, and good night.